Joining me on the phone right now is Coach Garrett Strot of the elite Tampa Bay Juniors. Coach, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us today.
Lucas, thank you. Appreciate it. Hope weather's finally getting nice up north for you guys. I know it's been a long spring.
Oh, it's been absolutely miserable. It hasn't stopped raining. It's just been atrocious. I mean, we're already looking forward to the Florida Showcase in December.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good winter all along with the weather and stuff, although it's already getting pretty hot down here.
I'm sure it is. Now, I mean, Coach, let's talk about the end of last season. You guys were obviously extremely successful with what you and every team was trying to do. So now, how do you stay competitive in the off season? A lot of guys may not know what goes on in between the regular season and the playoffs. So how do you guys stay competitive? What's been the team's focus as we roll through these summer months?
Well, we lost quite a bit of players after this year's team decided to go to school, even though they have junior eligibility. So we really only have about 6 guys coming back from last year's team that'll be back. From a couple move up to Premier, and then the rest decided to continue on playing in college. So we have a big task replacing a lot of guys, especially at the forward position. This a couple weeks ago, we had our camp, and we had a nice turnout. We had over 60 players at the camp, and the talent level keeps getting better and better every year, and makes our decisions harder. And but we feel that we have a good group. Players that come in and replace. But the one thing we will be, though, is probably very young. There's a lot of 02s and 03s.
So you talk about having a lot of young players, right? So, you know, you want growth in the system, but where's the focus when you have a young squad? Are you putting the focus on what they can do for you in a year or two, or are you trying to build the focus for how are they going to be productive for you this season?
No, we want to really focus on, what they can do right now. I mean, it's obviously a group that you got to have patience with when they're a lot of first-year junior players. It is a big jump for them. And, but it's a group, I think, is a talented group that as the season progresses will get better and better. 2 years ago, we were pretty, a lot of first-year guys, and that group did really well. And I expect that this one would also. And then, then we'll see, then obviously we'll have a nice core the following year. But no, I expect this group still to be very competitive and do really well, even though it's got a lot of first-year guys.
So you guys experienced a lot of what the USPHL has to offer in terms of different regions throughout both the season and especially at nationals. All teams in the league are fairly adaptable, but you can still ascribe a certain style to, say, the Midwest or the Northeast or the Southeast division. So how do you prepare for different regions and styles, and especially for the new players you have, how do you get them ready to face all of what the USPHL has to offer?
Well, that's one thing our division, I think, does a really good job of is because you got teams that'll, play physical, and then we also got teams that will play with skill. So you kind of get a little of both just in our own division already. And so that really prepares our guys when they go up north and play some different style teams and that, because we kind of have a mix of both down here. So that I think that's one of the positives about our division.
So last question for you. Talk about the best part about playing in Florida. What's your sell to the kid who's maybe thinking about the Florida division or Florida as a place to play hockey? What are some of the advantages of having a team down south?
Well, one of the biggest things is I think the competitiveness of our division. Every game at both the elite and premier levels, you got to come to play, and if you're not, you're going to get beat. And players want to play in a division where you got to compete, and that's number one. And the coaching down here with all the coaches and experiences that they have, the games are good up and down games. There's not all the BS after whistles, and they just play. They compete hard, and that was the number one thing that I really liked about down here. And then you cannot be leaving the rink every day in shorts, flip flops. You honestly, when you get here in December, January, you forget it's actually winter up north. It's kind of a nice thing. And we do some of our training outside in January just to kind of get outside a little bit and get the fresh air. And it's great. Sun is shining almost every single day. And I know the players that come from up north, that come down here to play, they love it. It's a different experience for them. Most people in traditional hockey markets have not that experience. And I tell players, the only chance you're going to get to live in Florida and play hockey is if you play for the Lightning or Panthers. Otherwise, this might be it.
Coach, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us. We look forward, obviously, to the start of the season and working with you guys again, but hopefully we'll be talking to you again before that happens.
Excellent. Thanks, Lucas. I appreciate it.
I'm joined on the phone now by Midwest Director, and I think we can safely say Midwestern hockey enthusiast, John Schwarz. John, thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Yes, always an honor to talk to you guys. Thank you.
So let's dive right into it. You know, last year you had a couple of teams represented in the Nationals tournament out there in Massachusetts, and you guys had a lot of success in the division throughout the season. So just talk about, you know, how last season went and what it was like for players and coaches to be out at Nationals.
Sure. Last year we were just, we were very lucky. I had two teams. I had the Cougars and the Moose out representing the Midwest of the four teams, and the Moose have been around now for this will be the third season coming up, and they've been very lucky. They've been at Nationals twice now, so it's been fun for them. And the Cougars, this was their second year in a row too. So a lot of fun things for those teams always to get a chance to be able to go to Boston and then be at Nationals. It's an awesome thing and a good ending for a team who gets lucky to for that to happen. I'm in a little different spot than most teams where they have five teams that I kind of represent, three of them that I'm majority leadership on out in the Midwest. So, it's hard for me because you would like to have all your teams make it to Nationals, but in my case, someone's got to finish fifth if I have five teams, so it makes it interesting. And I just try and sit back and hope everybody has a wonderful season, but you can't please everybody.
Exactly. I mean, we were happy to see those teams out there. We finally got to go antlers up in person with the Moose, which I think we've been waiting to do for a long time.
Yes.
So now let's move into to off-season stuff. I mean, off-season is really important for a lot of teams. You got guys, moving up, moving out, and then new guys coming in. So talk a little bit about off-season and the recruiting process.
Sure. So for my teams with the five, I'll have five different coaches. They might have different cultures, different ways they recruit and everything. So there's no rhyme or reason. And, with each of the coaches, they kind of give me a game plan, what they're trying to do. Some coaches like to go to every single recruiting thing that's out there. Some don't. Some like to have contracts done early. Some like to wait to the end and see what the drop downs are from the non-pay to play areas. So it's interesting. If you have one team, you just might have one. I have to deal with five different cultures, and then I also have to make sure that if each team fills, that's 100 players looking for billets possibly, and on all these teams. So we try to rely on all the different showcases out there. It seems like over the last 2 years, a couple of showcases have kind of dropped out, so it's getting a little harder there. But the summer is always a wonderful time to see my brethren, all the other premier teams out there. See them on the road, have fun, have a cup of coffee while we're recruiting, and it's a really fun, low-key atmosphere with pressure, filling the teams. So that's how I kind of put it.
So you're in a hockey-rich area. You're out in the Midwest. There's a lot of competition, not just with other teams in the USPHL, but other leagues outside of the USPHL, and even you start talking about prep schools. And even some Canadian teams. So, how do you deal with that competition? How do you keep one leg up on them?
That's always a hard one. It gets tougher and tougher. And I think if you interviewed all the teams, in the Premier, it does get tougher to have exactly what you want all the time. So you're just kind of at the mercy of the players and their decisions. And sometimes players won't make the best decisions of what you think that they should be making and stuff. But, every day is a different day. And when you start out the day compared to the end of the day, it can go in 10 different directions. So there is a lot of competition over here. But as long as I think, you put a good product that players see that you're moving the kids on to college and saving them some money in college, I think you can probably overcome some of the competition because that product always wins at the end, giving the best value and opportunities for kids.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about value, and creating that value, not just monetarily, but giving kids an opportunity to move up to the next level. You guys have a bit of a large training camp coming up, or an opportunity for these players to be seen and to create some of that value. Talk about that for a little bit.
Sure. So there's two things that's happened At the end of June, we actually had a trial where we were really lucky. The Cougars and my 5 teams, we had 95 kids out there. So that was fun for the kids that come to our own personal trial. But the fun thing that we're looking forward to is July 26th through the 28th, we have the USPHL/NCDC Combine in Chicago. And when we put it up on the online with the USPHL, we basically sold out in the first 3 or 4 days. It was the enthusiasm so great because a lot of the kids, their option is they have combines out here with the NHL, but they're charging $325, $350 to go to their combines. And we're giving an opportunity for kids at free for this year to be able to come in, get a look from all the NCDC, which are the non-pay-to-play, as with the 54 teams, or I think there might even be more in the premier level in the USPHL to be seen. So there's so much value and attraction, and then they all get to come down to Chicago where the Blackhawks facility we're using. So it'll be a really great atmosphere for July 26th to 28th, and we look forward to.
And, finally, we can't really let you go without talking about just Midwest hockey in general. Your finger's on the pulse out there. So let the folks at home know what is so special about Midwest hockey and why should players choose Midwest and the USPHL?
Yeah, that's a good question because every area is so different. Some might have huge populations, some might have little cults. Like out in Wisconsin Rapids, where Coach Quarters is, he has a town that's maybe 30,000 people, 700-800 people go to the games, and they have a band out there and stuff. So the Midwest, I think, gives enough variety, and there's so many different players out here. And it's Minnesota's a great state. When you watch the movie Miracle, you got Minnesota and Boston, Massachusetts. That kind of are the rivalries, they say. But I think there's so many fun areas in the Midwest and so many colleges out here that it gives people a really good opportunity, just like Massachusetts.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible what's going on out there, and especially the ability of, some of these players to start in the Midwest and move to the East Coast, move to those NCDC free-to-play model. It really works as a whole organism almost. Everyone working together, trying to get these kids to the next level, whatever that might be for them.
Yeah, I think the USPHL has a really good business model and a good game plan for players' journeys, and and then the Midwest is a great starting point for kids who want to be out here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have a lot of work to do, especially in the off season. So, thanks again, and we look forward to coming out to the Chicago Showcase and getting to work with some of your teams this year.
Yeah, and one last thing, I want you to relay to Dan that we miss him, and I want to thank him because out at Nationals, when we had our player Joseph Martinzik score the goal, it was a highlight. I usually view it about 3 times a day where he talks about the Bratwurst Ditka and the Cougars goal when we won 2-1 in that game, and it was so fun. So we miss you guys, and we can't thank both you and Dan for all that you do for us.
Oh, well, it's easy when you put the kind of product out there that you guys have. And you give us any opportunity to mention Bratwurst and Ditka, and we'll certainly take it.
Thanks a lot, Lucas.
Thanks a lot, John.
We'll talk to you.